More than 100 former wards of the state gathered at Parliament today calling for a full government inquiry into the abuse they suffered whilst in state care. The Human Rights Commissioner, Dame Susan Devoy, handed over a petition and an open letter demanding an inquiry and an apology for abuse suffered in care between the 1950s and the 1990s. Our Māori Issues correspondent, Mihingarangi Forbes, was there.
One by one they arrived, cradling their childhood photos in their arms. They wandered onto Parliament grounds, anxious about what they'd find, but they found one another. Long embraces between survivors. Only they know the horrors of state abuse.
Say in the bloody matter. No say.
Because we didn't, somehow
we didn't know we were children. We were children.
Pamela Thompson doesn't have a television and she doesn't listen to the radio, and by chance she read a notice about today's gathering and she travelled from Auckland to share her story.
I've had beatings from foster fathers. I've had foster fathers masturbate in front of me as a child. Not a horrendous.
Between the 1950s and 1990s, 100,000 New Zealand children were taken into state care. It's not known how many suffered sexual, physical and psychological abuse, but these people say they are all victims.
They put me in the psychiatric Bill 9. And I remained there for 4 years as a zombie, medicated as a zombie.
You remember it?
Clearly. If you couldn't take it, medication, if you didn't take it orally, they just stabbed you. 3 in a room. No clothes on, stitch blankets, no mattress.
One after another, they shared their stories.
Just not engage with SIFs anymore. Let's look after our own children. Don't let them be taken off us, and let's start taking responsibilities. But in the meantime, let's see if the government can stand up, or man up, or whatever it is they have to do to acknowledge the wrongs that have been done and try and get through some of the changes that have to be made.
I've been sexually abused many times in my life through Oraka Boys Home, Hokiau Beach, Campbell Park School, been to Oraka Boys Home, and it was shocking.
I'm a survivor of abuse while in state care and sexual abuse. I think what's not being quoted is statistics, and the statistics are 100,000 of us. 100,000 of us were abused in state care. Now let's talk about our grandchildren. I brought a photo today. Hold it up. This is 2 of my 18 grandchildren that had to go through their father and their grandfather's abuse that was passed on and educated through state care.
Green Party co-leader Matidia Tude, who has friends and family who were abused in state care, accepted the Action Station petition.
Mostly, they were abused and they were raped and they were tortured. They were tortured in such terrible ways that we all know that any parent who had done that to their child would be in prison.
Yeah.
And the Māori Party co-leader Marama Fox received an open letter signed by more than 10,000 people. Abuse survivor Tupua Urlich, who is also a member of the independent advocacy group for children, Whakarongo Mai, told the crowd he was disappointed no one from the national government came out to hear their stories.
That was dangerous, that wasn't safe. We need to see action taken. We need leaders to step up, take responsibility.
Meanwhile, as survivors gathered inside the House, Labour's Deputy Leader Jacinda Ardern asked the government why it rejected calls for a full inquiry. Deputy Prime Minister Paula Bennett had this to say.
Because the government is taking a practical approach to addressing the abhorrent abuse people suffered while in state care, and an inquiry would not resolve the claims of individuals, provide payments or offer personal apologies.
But that isn't good enough for Pamela Thompson. Like many others today, she can't shake the memories.
what's happening now today with the same systems is still happening like when I was in the system. Nothing's changed.
The Labour and Green parties are calling for an inquiry, while the Māori Party are calling for a royal inquiry into state abuse. Mō te hōtaka o te ahiahi nei ko Mihingarangi Forbes, ahau.